We made it to the Arctic Circle. So it's been just a little bit over like 20 miles to get to, it's been over 20 miles from Eagle Plains to get to the Arctic Circle. This is like one major landmark stone, whatever, to get here, and we did it.
Moxie, Greg, and I are riding around the world to raise $100,000 for the nonprofit Girl Up. We're donating 10% of RUFFLY sales to the fundraiser and posting a new episode every week. It's a big dog on two wheels adventure for girls' empowerment. So follow along and please lend your support.
So I'm watching Moxie dismount from the cockpit after we pull over here, and she kind of looks around and then she starts sniffing, right? She madly starts sniffing, she pees, and then she sniffs some more. And I'm thinking, you can't bring a dog anywhere, right? You're the one that wanted to bring her on this. Gotta keep her, feed the beast. And then of course it occurs to me, how many of us hop off the motorcycle or get out of the minivan or something, set up an easel and like start painting the scene that we're seeing? Maybe we're taking photos because we need to capture it, or really because Instagram needs to know about this.
Laguna is gonna need a bath when we finish with the Dempster. All of this dirt is actually from the construction zones. The road itself is really dry, except when they put the tanker that has all of the water onto the dirt.
Really what we're doing is we hop down, it's like, I've got to go to the bathroom, I'm hungry. Oh my God, they have ice cream dots. Maybe we can get a local craft brew. So as much as we're in a place like this and we take in the scenery, we also go sort of right to our basic sniffs, right? On the Dempster, after you get past Tombstone, there really isn't much in the way of turnoffs. It's not like sort of a national forest that you'd think of where there's forest roads and makeshift campsites and all kinds of things that people have been doing. I mean, there's really nobody out here other than work crews. So you just don't find much. Yeah, we found a couple of quarries that didn't look too appealing. And beyond that, not much else. So after checking out an official Yukon campsite and just not feeling it, we were really excited when we found a couple of tracks that just kind of goes off into the woods. We followed it down just the shortest ways, and here it ends at this clearing where a fire pit had already been beautifully made for us as if they expected us. The only thing they didn't do is collect firewood for us, so I'll put that on the TripAdvisor recommendation for next time.
We know that the stretch that goes up to Eagle Plains from Dawson City is the easier part. And most of it is like this, like there are patches that have some gravel, but there's like always like a stretch that's nice and solid. So it's not like we're riding in really deep gravel.
I suppose we all have a place that we consider to be just sort of larger than life, some place that we almost could never imagine ourselves being. It just seems something so mythic. And really for me, this is it. The Yukon going into Northwest Territories, I mean the far north, nearing the Arctic Ocean. It's just not something I ever imagined I'd be doing.
If you like what we're doing, here's how you can support the Go Ruffly Around the World adventure. You can donate to our Girl Up fundraiser, become a Patreon supporter, purchase RUFFLY gear for your dog and everyone you know, and of course, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much, and now back to the adventure. So we did about 130 miles, about 200 kilometers out of the 400 kilometers that we need to do to get to Eagle Plains. And this morning we are refilling our gas from our Armadillo gas bag. And that should take us all the way up to Eagle Plains. And then we can get gas again. And then I don't think that we necessarily need to carry extra gas from that point on, because there should be gas stations within our range. So Greg is filling up here with the gas bag using the nozzle.
So of course, when you're camping, one of the key things is having enough water. And that is extra difficult when you're on a motorcycle. I carry a 10-liter dromedary bag. I fill it to about 8 liters because I found that that is enough. We can do a very small, mild bath. So for cooking at night, cooking in the morning, and for Moxie. So 8 liters, and that's it.
The mosquitoes are coming out a little bit.
Yeah, we were like almost completely mosquito-free this morning, and now we're starting to experience them. When we are fortunate enough to camp by a river, we take advantage of using our SteriPen, which is sort of like a UV pen-looking device, and it basically kills everything in the water. So you want to find a spot where the water is pretty quick moving, so you don't get a lot of particles in it. And then basically like a wand, you just put it in the water and you move it around so that you agitate the water. The UV does its job, and then we do that sort of one by one in the pot to fill the 10-liter dromedary bag.
After getting our water SteriPenned and filling our gas tanks with the gas bags, Greg is now killing the fire from last night and this morning. And now we are heading off.
Moxie is not ready to go this morning. She is exhausted. It was a long day yesterday, a lot of bumpy miles. So she thinks that we can't see her there where she is camouflaged, she believes.
So we still have 2 hours to Eagle Plains. And then after that, the next stop, I think, is Fort McPherson. And then I think there's a ferry there as well.
Unfortunately for her, she's not a chameleon. So her brown and black still stands out.
And I really hope that we see a little bit more when it comes to the First Nations people.
Definitely. The knotted band in pink on her harness is clear as day. So Moxie, nobody is fooled.
In Alaska, I sort of thought we were going to see more about like the native people. There's going to be more representation from either like from the tourist side, so that they're telling the story about what the first people were like when they were here. But I didn't really see a lot of that, and I was a bit disappointed. So I'm hoping that maybe this stretch will have some more of that, some more traditional things of the First Nations people. Because that's really what this is all about. They're the ones who are living out here, and I'd like to sort of understand about what their way of life was like years ago, and just sort of get a better picture of what the Yukon and then eventually the Northwest Territories, sort of that lifestyle was like. I do like to use my buff as like a nice way to keep the warm air near my face. So I put it like over my nose, and so then when I'm breathing out, it still stays nice and warm. And it's like a nice gaiter for my neck as well. So that's what I like to do when it's cold like this, when it's windy. And then when I put my helmet on, then it just all sort of stays nicely in place. And then I've got this nice warm air just circulating around under my visor.
That's a pretty cool carrier, though.
Thanks. Yeah, we manufacture them.
Do you?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we have a few hundred around the world.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got a picture of your...
Yeah, RUFFLY's the brand. Outhouses sometimes make for the best wind blocks.
Eagle Plains, we have arrived. That last, 50, 80 kilometers was just like high speed blasting.
We made it to Eagle Plains. The first stretch was a lot easier than I expected it to be, so I was finally able to sort of like take a breath and relax.
We were just cranking, and it was the only thing to do to keep it from being too bumpy. You know, you just gotta achieve a speed where you can kind of eat up those bumps and just level them out a bit.
I'm glad that we made it. We get to be inside and warm up a little bit, and then we get to head out again. He's such a brute.
We got a little bit of rain, which was unpleasant, but also tamped down the dust a bit.
I've seen puppies in sidecars before, but not on the back. Yeah. You're the queen of the carriage.
Oh. We're ready for something hot, and Moxie needs to do her business first.
I know that the next part is going to be more difficult, at least the part from Inuvik up to Tuk, but we're not going to do that today. Today we are going to do like another hour or two, and then we are going to look for a wild camping site. Ready for the next stretch?
We made it to the Arctic Circle. So it's been just a little bit over like 20 miles to get to. It's been over 20 miles from Eagle Plains to get to the Arctic Circle. This is like one major landmark stone, whatever, to get here, and we did it. Okay, it's time to put our sticker up at the Arctic Circle. Moxie, nobody needs you. So roughly around the world has made it to the Arctic Circle. And so here we are at the Arctic Circle, and then we are going to continue on north to get to the Arctic Ocean. It's probably a good time for Moxie to put on her jacket. It's about like 9-10 degrees Celsius. And we're not going too fast. We are going faster than we were at the beginning of the Dempster because the road actually is a little bit better and I've gotten more confident. So it's good to just give her some extra wind protection and warmth.
I've been trying to be my own guiding star, but it appears it hasn't taken me very far. I've tried to be my own all in all and everything, but it's just been a hard and arduous thing.
I know that the next part is going to be more difficult, at least the part from Inuvik up to Tuk, but we're not going to do that today. Today we are going to do like another hour or two, and then we are going to look for a wild camping site.
When I look back upon the life I have lived and the choices I have made, what do I see? All hell fails when I try to push my way, but when I gave in, all life's good came running at me. With an open heart and mind and arms laid down, you're a wall of hate and arms let in the light of day, and let Jesus show the way. But hey, I'm not religious and I'm old since I can't stand the way that most priests talk in the state church or elsewhere.
When we crossed into Northwest Territory, this rainbow just emerged. It was like the gods were shining down on us.
Something worthwhile. Now I take a pause and I take a breath and listen. listen to them, then I know how to begin.
And we have finally found our campsite for the night.
Look at that lake. It doesn't really show up nicely in the water, but it is Luna Laguna color.
By night, I mean night. It is night. It's got to be 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Moxie has already tasted it, and she seems to have given it paws up, so we're happy about that.
We tried several quarry sites, and we just couldn't get a good wind block. We just couldn't find one that was speaking to us. We had our ears open, but it wasn't.
We're about 380 kilometers from Tuktoyaktuk.
And I guess ultimately the rainbow, or the gods, or just dumb fate was leading us here. And there's actually a fire pit that's been made. We do not claim to be the Lewis and Clark, first arrivals at anything. Jess is already hard at work getting herself fully winterized.
Supposedly the weather is supposed to still stay nice, even though it looks like there's huge storm clouds around. So I'm still crossing my fingers for good weather.
And now Jess is feeding Moxie because Moxie needs to both play and feed at the same time as soon as we finish for the day.
And now we are going to have some vegan vindaloo with some rice. That's what's on our meal plan for tonight.
Somehow it does seem that Moxie is treated as a second-class citizen, the way we are feeding by the tent and she's always feeding by the front wheel of Jessica's bike. Jess keeps the bowls and the kibble to go bag in her fronties, which is what we call the tank pannier bags. So as soon as Moxie leaps down, we take all that stuff out and it just goes down right where it is.
The stretch from Eagle Plains, there was about like 10 or 15 kilometers of more gravel on the road, but nothing that gave me a scare. I just looked straight ahead, gave power, and I was okay. I was in third, fourth gear, so I was still cruising along. But we met a guy at Eagle Plains who had a fall like 10 days ago when it was really rainy and muddy. Just fishtailed, slipped, ended up going over his handlebars and hurt his ribs. So, when it's dry, it's good. I can imagine it being pretty slick with the mud when it is raining.
Started drizzling last night just after we got into the tent, probably about 11 o'clock. So we've got a somewhat muddy, boggy mess up here that we're going to be probably paddling the bikes through.
So the stretch out of our campsite there was a muddy, slicky section there. So I just paddled it through. Are my tires getting dumped?
Not yet. While it's not really raining at this point, there is a lot of mist. The mist is really heavy, which is, of course, carrying all the moisture.
We do have this downhill now to get back onto the main road, which I'm a little anxious about.
Then we've got to get down the truck road back onto the main highway. The truck road could go either way. Got some slopes, so maybe the water ran off, or it could be a bit boggy as well. So we might be paddling the bikes with the one supporting the other. Moxie will definitely be running alongside, or probably walking alongside at the speed we'll be going.
Hi guys, thanks so much for watching. Greg talked a little bit about the Yukon and the Great North being a place that's larger than life, and that's something that I completely agree with. And sometimes we do like to wax philosophical, and if you've seen any of my Instagram posts, you know that that's the way that I like to write when I have a moment to sit down and get my thoughts out on paper and really craft a message. So if you want a bit more of that, you gotta go check out my Instagram and read my posts. I think you guys are gonna like them. But today I'm going to talk about something Practical. I'm going to talk about what you need when you do a remote journey like this, what you should pack. You guys saw in a previous episode that we did offload some of our stuff and left it in Dawson City before we started the Dempster. That was some like extra stuff that we've been carrying that I wasn't going to need as we continued further north. We were going to pick it up on the way back down. But the things that I have with me are the things that I've been carrying throughout this whole trip. So for me, going and doing this remote stretch, I did carry a few additional things, but most of the stuff that I had was this basic stuff that I've been carrying throughout this whole round the world adventure. So first things first. Always have my first aid kit. My first aid kit has enough stuff for myself and for Greg, and then I've got special stuff for Moxie. Like I've got a skin stapler in case she has a big gash on herself, or I've got stuff for her eyes in case she has an eye infection, and then stuff for her ears as well. So I have certain things that are meant for her, and then for Greg and I have all of the basics. So he has his own first aid kit so that when he rides alone, he's got his and I've got mine, but that is something that's always in my side case. When it comes to spare parts, I do have a few basic things in my side case. I'm not, to be honest, carrying that many spare parts. I always have an air compressor, and I've got my plugs for my tires. I run tubeless tires, so it's just easy to plug if I have a hole. And that's something that I knew was going to be really necessary on the Dempster. People were talking about that they carry additional tires when they do it and that it chews them up. So I knew it was going to be a bit of a worry for me, so I made sure that I had that. And the air compressor is like great. It just runs right off the battery of the bike. You don't have to worry about those CO2 canisters running out. This just makes it a lot cleaner and easier. And that just stays on the top lid of my side case. So I've got my first aid kit, I've got some spares, I've got my tools, and I've got the air compressor and the plugs for my tires. The other things that I carry are, in this case, I carried all of my warm weather gear. So I normally have a whole set of thermal long johns, tops and bottoms. I've got thermal socks as well. I've got a heated vest, which is key when you're at the campsite and you're outside and it's cold. That heated vest can really help you, especially when you're riding and it's windy. It also helps and acts as a good wind block under my jacket. So I use that, and it has a battery that I can charge off of on my bike. I've got 2 batteries for it. So I can use one during the day and charge the other one, and then I can just switch them out as I go. And I can charge it on my bike, and then I can also charge it if I needed to on an external battery. And it also works as an external battery for my phone, for example. So that is something that was really useful in the cold weather, having that heated vest. My bike has heated grips, so that was lovely, and I'm known for turning them on all the time, so I had them on high during this stretch. And I do have my heavier winter weight gloves, which is something that I made sure that I had with me just to keep my hands warm, because that is like the worst feeling when you've got freezing cold hands and you're standing and there's wind on you. You want to make sure that your hands are nice and warm so that you have that dexterity that you need to ride that gravel stretches. In terms of food, I brought 4 days worth of food up the Dempster and back down again, with my expectation that in Fort McPherson and then again in Inuvik, we would be able to purchase additional food on the way up and then back on the way down. But 4 days was enough, I felt. If we did have a breakdown, if there was an issue, that should keep us going. And I bought things like lentils and things like that, pre-cooked rice, things that were easy to cook, and that wasn't going to take too much time because I knew that I was going to be wiped after these days of riding. And so that's what I had with us, and some canned food as well. And for Moxie, I had 5 days of food actually for her in her kibble-to-go bag, and that was going to be enough for her definitely until we were at 5 days if we were going to take to get to Inuvik, where I could refill her food. I also keep beef jerky on hand. You guys know probably that I'm a mostitarian. I am vegetarian for most of the time, and if I'm in a situation where they only have meat and I'm being served meat at a friend's place, or if there's a party going on and that's the only thing that's available, I will eat it. It's not something that I buy myself, but I will if that's the case. And I do carry beef jerky or chicken jerky with us. It's a good thing for a quick protein for Greg and I, and also for Moxie too. Like if she's looking for a treat, or if she wants something as well, or if she's running out of her kibble, it's an additional thing that we can supplement. So it works for all three of us. So I do carry that in the case of an emergency where we do need a little pick-me-up, and we're not at a place where we can just stop and cook something at that moment. And then I did have my basic, like, I have my treats pocket on Greg's bike, so I had all of my granola bars and all of that good stuff, and nuts and trail mix and things like that we carried along, so that we could eat along the way. But yeah, 4 days was what I packed for. In terms of water, Greg always carries that 10-liter MSR water bladder on the back of his bike, and that probably lasts for about a day and a half, 2 days, depending on if we're camping, if we are taking a bath, how hot it is during the day, how much we're drinking, and what meal I decide to prepare at night that requires more or less water. But you saw that we do use the Steri pen, which works really well when you're at a place where the water looks really clear and fresh and it's running, and that you could just take it from there and then you just use the Steri pen instead of having to boil the water for a long time and use all the fuel. Steri pen works really well. It's like 90 seconds, I think, if you're just stirring for the liter, and you can charge it on the bike. It's got a little USB plug on it. So that works ideally, especially if you're in a place where it's not like you're going to be able to find bottled water or anything like that nearby, but there are a number of natural water sources. So you saw we were there when we were fishing and camping at that site. We were able to collect all of the water that we needed for the next couple of days. In terms of fuel, you guys know that for our bikes, we've got the Giant Loop Armadillo gas bags, two gallons for each of us. And that works well for our bikes, but it also doubles as additional fuel for cooking. We've got the MSR Whisper Light stove that I use for cooking, and that uses all different types of gas, so we can use our fuel for our bikes for cooking gas if we were to run out. Because we do have an MSR bottle that we use specifically for our stove, but in the case that it's taking longer to boil and we're using more fuel, we can always siphon from that fuel as well. So that's something that will work well, especially in the evenings when we want to have a nice hot meal. Sometimes I end up buying things that require like boiling something for a long period of time or simmering, and you know, it takes up fuel, but I don't want to give that up because I really enjoy having a nice meal at the end of the day, and I love the cooking, so I don't want to give that up. But I know that if we are going to be using a lot, we do have the ability to get it from our gas bags or from our bikes. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that we are carrying a Spot X on this trip, and that's one of those little satellite devices that has an SOS button. So in the event that you're in an emergency or there's an accident, you can press that button and it'll alert the local authorities. We hadn't been using a satellite device throughout all of our other trips. Like, this is the first trip that we've had one, and we were just lucky enough to be sponsored, and that's why we're carrying it. But like I said, we've been doing numerous trips in the past, a lot of traveling, and haven't had the need to actually have a device. I know that they're really popular now, and for some people it gives them that sense of security if they are going off grid. And there have been times, like when Greg and I were in Chile and he decided to go in the Atacama Desert and do this stretch, and then he got his bike grounded and couldn't go anywhere and didn't have signal, and then he had to go and hike down, he ended up hiking like 10 kilometers to get to the town so that he could let me know that he was okay, but that he needed help to get his bike out. So yes, in those situations, a satellite device is very useful. But I don't look at it like it's something that is necessary to have in order to have an adventure. You can easily have an adventure without it. You can let people know ahead of time where you're going and have check-ins with somebody, so then in the event that you do miss a check-in, that they will be aware and it'll sort of act as a security device in that sense. But I don't want people to feel like they can't do a thing because they don't have a satellite device. They can be pretty pricey. And for a long trip like this, where we'll be in places that don't have a lot of coverage, it can be useful. There's definitely the value in it. But I don't want to discourage people from having an adventure because they can't afford it or that they just don't have it. So I just wanted to put that out there to let you know that we've done trips both ways. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about the whole satellite device thing. I hope you really enjoyed the episode. And if you love what we're doing and the videos that we're producing, one way that you can support us is over on our Patreon page. We're putting out additional content over there, so go on over and take a look. And don't forget to subscribe to us here on YouTube and at GoRUFFLY for Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.